All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of What's What BR. We have the sought after and highly anticipated, Dr. Nari's, with the East Baton Rouge Parish School System. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm good. Keep it up. We got some good weather. It's about to be hot, so you're the new guy in town, so get ready. It gets real hot. I'll tell you that. So, but
Super I'm excited to
so
be in the heat versus the cold.
yeah. I'll talk to you in August about that. We'll see what you see how that works. That it'll be interesting. So, so tell me, you are the new superintendent. Yeah, tell us a bit about yourself for anybody who doesn't know a little bit about you.
Yeah, so been in education for a while. Got into teaching from tutoring kids. I saw a child that couldn't read one day, and so I went back while I was in college and complained to a professor. And she said to me, if you want to make change, get into education and become a teacher. And I went from there, and I've been a teacher, and I've been a principal and an administrator. And then, from there, just been always trying to push for what's right for kids, around trying to get access and read better and connect with communities that way. And that's been really kind of my story in this journey. As you know, I've been in a lot of districts similar to East Baton Rouge, and just really trying to be a part of a community that's wanting to push what's right for kids and give kids access. And so that's been really kind of my calling in this work.
That's awesome. That's a good place to be. I'd call it the right answer. It's meaningful. It's a calling. I like the way you put that. So, you've been here now. What, about 3 months? Kind of right in the trial by fire. Is that right, or has it been a little bit more?
Yeah. I mean, about mid to end January I started, and so you can say it's about 2-3 months now. It was about 2 months, yeah.
Right in the easiest time. Right in the easiest time for education, right? There was, the easiest time for any educator to do anything, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I would frame it as easiest time, but different times is probably how I'd frame it right now. So, but I think when we get out of COVID, and people back will be great.
Yeah, no, I don't mean by any means. I know this is the most trying times for anyone, in education right now. So, tell me, you've just stepped in here, there's got to be a vision, right? There's some priorities, some things, when you came in that you wanted to set out, what is some of that you'd like to, let us know? Obviously we can't get the full plan, but, that short spurt of it.
Yeah, so I tell people all the time, the achievement gap is actually a literacy gap. When kids can't read, write, or comprehend, doesn't matter what subject they're in or what they're doing, it impacts them over time. And when they can't do that, then you have what you call an opportunity gap. And so kids then fall behind, their opportunities are different. And so I always feel like you have to attack the root cause of the issue, which is around literacy. And so that's always been kind of my learning over a period of time around that work. I mean, there are some key things that I think we can do right away to really start setting the tone and connecting children to better opportunities in our cities. And so one is access to quality care education, starting that right away in early childhood. I think kids fall behind before they get into kindergarten. So you got to think about how you support kids to do that from the 0 to 4 age. I also think about kindergarten readiness. Every child that goes into kindergarten should be ready, and that helps them in projecting their space on that. The third thing I think about also is making sure by the third grade level, kids are reading at or above grade level. And, you're pushing for that because the better that they do at those at that grade level and up, the more that their opportunities increase. If they can't read and write and do things at the third grade level, then their chances to even finish high school diminishes drastically, right? And so I think that's another piece. The other part's ensuring that they can transition into middle schools. Once they get through that, if you don't do a good job in doing that transition, it becomes a very challenging thing because, I tell folks it's an all-encompassing approach to the work. And the other big markers I think about is like accelerating the number of kids that get industry certification and start that process by the 8th grade. I think if you can start getting kids as early as possible into getting into what they want to be in their lives or do, then, their excitement on getting to like the thing that they want to succeed in or what they want to live in their life is great. And then the other last thing that I have that I think is really important that I'd love to see us do is to ensure that kids that graduate from East Baton Rouge Parish school system graduate not only with a high school degree, but also with an associate's degree. I think the great thing I love with the state of Louisiana is, we've provided a lot of latitude on how you can rethink how high school experience can be. And I think that if we can get our kids to accelerate faster, to get those credentialings, then a child can check off the box and say, hey, I'm the first to graduate from college, graduate with a degree in education, or, hey, I can go to work right away if I want to into great industries that we currently have in our city, or, hey, I want to go into like the next level to, I got my first 2 years done. So now I got 2 more years to do that. And I can go focus on doing an advanced degree. Right. And so, I mean, I think there's so much more potential, or what you'll probably hear me always say is untapped potential in our city that I don't think we currently take advantage of. And I think that trying to reshift, refocus in that work is really important. So those to me are the big, I guess, the 6 keys, I call them, that I feel like that I want us to kind of focus on as we're starting to move this work for our kids.
No, that's amazing. And just to touch on, and I don't know if you've ever heard this before, you're talking the literacy, rates and, numbers. We have, obviously, we publish some magazines, so literacy is a big thing, for us. We also have our, kids publication that really helps with literacy. But in the process of that, we learned, and I'd have to go, I don't know it off the top of my head where it comes into play exactly, but over in Texas, they actually look at literacy rates when they're trying to plan capacity in building prisons and jails.
That's right.
Actually, they correlate,
That's right. In the 3rd grade, that's when it happens. Yeah. So they start building prisons based on 3rd grade scores. I mean, I think it's like crazy to me, right? And
I heard that stat, and I was like, "There's no way." But it's like it does make some sense, if you're not able, that literacy. But it literally was a mind blowing stat for me to be able to hear that. That's the way that some of these things are put together. So
and that's why I think that's why, to me, I'm really convicted about, I call it trying to disrupt the cradle to prison pipeline. And I think that the number one way that we do that, I mean, it's a lot of cities across the country have talked about that, and from teachers to superintendents to, different folks across the country. If we can change the literacy rates in our schools and in our city, the impact of how that would help us from, having a city that has like less crime in it, or a city that has more kids being connected to communities, or all these other factors that you don't see, becomes a greater economic viability for our city. And I think that, I tell folks, they ask me, and I heard somebody that I was talking to, they said, well, am I my brother's keeper? And I was like, yes, we are. We are all responsible for each other, as humans, especially when we live in a city and a community together. Doesn't matter what color you are or what socioeconomic space you come from, is, we have to think about each other in that way. And I think in education, and the investment that you do in education makes a difference. I mean, you transform a school district's city, you transform the city.
Yeah.
And that is a fact, I tell folks. It doesn't
Absolutely.
matter here or any other place in our state, but that is a fact.
No, and that brings me exactly to where what I wanted to talk with you about also is, as a parenting publication, as one of our publications, we speak to parents, and that parents have to get involved. And I wanted to kind of get some of your take on it, but just before that, we just had Mayor Broom on the show, and we were talking about, parents. It came back to parents as well. That we were one of the big initiatives that she was working was talking about, the litter, that we have, and the blight. And one of the things that I brought up, I was like, well, maybe you can't say it, but maybe I'll say it. Parents have to get involved. It's not just about educating people, to don't, litter or go pick up litter. It starts to me with when the car door opens and the paper or the trash falls out and the parent just moves on. It's like, no, tell the kid, you have to pick that up. It makes a difference. Same thing, I think, in the schools. The parents have to take the part in this. It's not, you're not running a daycare, and we need parents to help.
Yeah, I mean, from a system standpoint, I think that you have to always design things to happen. I don't think things happen randomly. I believe it's all by design. And when I think about parents, it's not just saying, hey, I need you to come, but how do we create an opportunity for parents to know how to navigate and feel like they're a part of their learning process for kids throughout their education. I mean, the reality is parents are the first teachers. I tell folks, I have my own daughter, right? And when I look at my own daughter, both my daughters, the parents are the first teachers. I mean, they look up to you walking right out of the womb on like, what do I do next, right? I'm exploring the world. I have a baby daughter, and, she's, as I watch the stages of development, and, my wife and I are trying to figure out like, okay, what do we do to influence her to think this way or do that, and how to hold a spoon. And so I think that continues throughout the child's life, and your influence as a parent is huge in their lives, right? Whether they show you that they listen or not. I tell a parent, I mean, even still at this age, right? I still like got that voice in my head, my mom and dad about certain things. And but I think like, how do you get them involved? And so I know we're thinking about here in East Baton Rouge about how do we create things for opportunities to help have parents learn how to navigate, how do they contribute in trying to get more kids, their child to read, and how do they contribute around getting their child's well-being so they can be successful in those things. And I think we have to do that by design. So not only they feel safe about doing it, but they also can say, hey, I don't know how to do this, but what are some ways that we can provide some resources to help them in that, whether it's reading to their child, simple as reading every day, maybe for 5 or 10 minutes, or reading with them, or doing something at the dinner table if they have that opportunity, or maybe just, hey, driving them somewhere, playing something in the car, audio, so they can kind of get that. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can have influence on your child. And I think our goal anyway is to try to give families some strategies around doing that. And so I'm excited about the work that we're going to be doing in our parent and community engagement and enhancing work with our parent university.
Absolutely. Well, I think, what people need to know, we tell people all the time, whether you mentioned, influencing and, working with kids, it's happening whether you were actively doing it or not actively doing it, right? It's either you're actively promoting, something positive and instilling, a value, or if you're not, one way or the other, that child is looking at you.
That's
we,
right.
we've talked about, I think we had a story, or it's maybe one planned and I'm leaking it a little bit too early, but the concept was, as a parent, it was like when you're sitting down and you have your child on the ground, put your phone down and just grab a piece of paper and just watch them and just mark, count up how many times they look up at you, to see what you're doing. You'd be amazed at how many times they do that, in an hour versus, maybe it's time, put the phone down, read a little bit, those kind of things would make a world of a difference. So, tell me, if we jump, for time, because I always tell everybody there's more important things that you have to do than to sit here and talk to me, but being in, I'm gonna call it 90 days, kind of getting here, like Jay, do you feel that you've kind of gotten it, kind of getting your hands on the reins, getting a couple things done, and, kind of what do you think the next, what does the next 90 look like, you think?
Yeah, so in the last couple of weeks, I've had about 25 different groups that I've met with, are a different set of stakeholders. I've gone to different churches. I've gone into advisory groups. We've just created also the first student advisory group. I've had a group of students from every high school in the city to, engaging with teachers and just been trying to listen to each of these groups about what do they think is going on, what do they think are the things that are needed in our school system. And I feel like, there's a lot of great common themes that I'm hearing about. One, I'm excited always about being in a place where there's commitment to educating children and also wanting to get it right. Even the board, they have been, even though the weekend I had a board retreat with them, they're talking about specifically like what are the things that we can make sure that's happening at a high level. Excited about that, but I've been trying to really think through that. Also been trying to understand like where are we in terms of our data. I mean, it's easy in the school system because we're a public entity, so you just look at how kids are reading scores and all that. But I think the real story on top of numbers is what people are saying. And I've been trying to really hear what that is. So as we start thinking about what our next thing will be, is how do we design that to happen so families can feel more connected. So in the upcoming weeks, my goal is to be looking at what our summer will look like, how we're going to end our school year, what our summer will look like as we go into next fall, not only from an academic standpoint, but also from a community and parent engagement standpoint, and then kind of start vamping up so families can see that, one, we're providing information all the time so they can feel that they're a part of it. Two, we're providing opportunities for parents to be a part of the process and community members. And then three, we're making sure that we're all kind of clear, like, here's the markers that we're trying to accomplish to kind of and measure that over time. I mean, the school board is working on a strategic plan that will end in June 18th. That will have what they call key performance indicators, which are pretty much just a fancy word for data points. And we want to look at how kids will read over a period of time. And then also, how do we put strategies and goals for making sure that we're creating an opportunity to develop the whole child, right? It's not just only academics, but their own social and emotional well-being. And also, how do families and communities fit a part in that? I mean, I stand in front of you today because I actually had a village that invested in me, right? And I would not be in front of you. I tell folks, just because I could wear a suit, a tie, and my my vernacular is a little bit cleaner now, and I could speak properly and all that, you'd have saw me years ago and you'd be like, I would never think this guy would have got a doctorate or do all that. But it's because a village was committed to, helping me to learn how to read and write better and do things, And so I think that if I can make it, I know other children in all across our city can make it. And so the question for me is, how do we do that to a high scale? So, kids feel connected. I mean, we have 41,000 reasons to get this right. And I know we're going to do it together that way.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's amazing what you've done already, and kind of just good to hear life. The breath. That it's not the same thing. And I think it's extremely important. The literacy is huge for us. Getting the parents involved is huge. So I think we're 100% aligned, and I think it's communicating with parents and finding ways, to communicate with them. And it's not just mailing the letters that go out. It's not just, buying billboards and magazine ads. It's genuinely getting down, and talking and getting into those groups and listening to what people have to say and finding ways, because what it sounds like is, the school system's been ran the same for years. Most school systems has. And finally, it seems like that there's some kind of winds of change that are blowing, and people are listening to new ideas, and people are going, well, maybe we don't have to do it that way, just because we did it that way for all these years. Here's another option. And I think that's what's going to get in kids, engaged. I think I read it one time where, you've got a lot of kids that are taking, some of the medicine, not to go down this road because it's a whole trap, but, it's that attention deficit. It's like we live in a world that is so stimulating, right now, and we can't help it. But then we want kids to, sit down, look at the board, and pay attention there. Don't look at the other things. It's like, well, we're all that's the world we live in today. So
That's
I
right.
think we have to embrace some of that. So
I mean, we have to rethink on how we do schools. I mean, because kids, they can go to other worlds through social media in ways that we never could, when we were younger. And so I think, we embrace that, and then we say, hey, how do we get their learning or engage around how they can read, write, and comprehend better through those different ways? And I think that that's just the reality of the adjustment. The better we do that, the better we can navigate and do that work, the better our children do, right? And I think also it's a learning curve for all of us. I mean, even me as a parent, probably, similar as you, is like, how do we get parents to understand that new way, and so they can know how they can be helpful? I mean, I have yet to meet a parent that doesn't want their child to succeed, right? Or an aunt or an uncle, because I tell folks with families, there's a lot of different type of parents that are raising children, right? It's not always just the traditional way. Everybody's family has different structures. And so my view is like, how do I get them all in a room to talk about, here's some different strategies, approaches, and also how the different ways that we can manage to deal with things so we can help kids get better and move forward. So I think we have some untapped opportunities that we can do that currently. And so I'm excited to be the part of the process and do it in collaboration with the community.
and I think that the last thing, I think those KPIs that you're talking about are big. I'm a big numbers guy. I like to look at things. And I think people now, they're consumed with so much data. They know, if you would have asked me how many friends I had growing up as a kid, I couldn't have told you. Now you ask a kid, they go look at their social media. It's, oh, I've got this many friends. Parents are the same way. They want data. And I think if we can tell parents, look, if you do these things,
Yes.
step, and I'm going to show you the data, then guess what? It's making a difference.
Right.
Then they'll be more willing to continue to do it if you
That's
can
right.
show them that it's making a difference.
That's
So,
right. Well, our goal is to have what they call 6 keys to success. And so, we're going to be sharing with families and communities about what we think should be happening, and how do we help support them to do that in collaboration, and just and we're hopeful that will help to continue to build the work. So,
well, Dr. Narcisse, I appreciate you taking some time, to talk to me. It's great to kind of run through some of this. Like I said before, we'd love to have you back and kind of give us, the state of the union, so tell us what's working, what's not working, and what we can do as parents to do better. So
I appreciate that, and I know I definitely will come back. Thank you for the opportunity just to engage. I think anytime I get to talk about education and how I partner with families and communities to do this work, I'm always excited. I tell folks I may be the superintendent, but the reality is it takes a village to kind of do this work. And so I tell folks my view of the world is a collective approach, because I'm a product of that collectivity. And if I can make it, I know any child can.
absolutely. Well, thanks for spending some time with us today. I know you got more important things to do than talk to me, and we'll have you back soon.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks again.
Thank you.